ورحمة تعالى وبركاته كلنتي وعنا ونكسر دمان دعوة شقي مجي قدرين تمودنا وهالكان نجد دعوة نسان وإليستيفي تيفي قرن كوغادينيا أو نوع برتين هذا هنوكله إن هو ذا كلنا kulanti wacan daawadayaal waxaan idinka raali gelinaynaa in cimilada wadankan Minnesota gobolka Minnesota iyo magaalada Minneapolis aad iyo aad u xun oo baraf xun da'ayo inaan isu imaan waayeen staffkii ama shaqaalihii ILAYSTV ee inay soo tubin lahaa barnaamijkan maanta balse barnaamijka qayb kamid ah waa inay soo tubinaa laakiin waxa meesha ka maqan warkii oo aan diyaarin lahayn laakiin cimilada xun awgeed ay suurtagal noqon weyday inay isu yimaadaan staffkii shaqaalaha TV-ga ILAYSTV balse barnaamij kale waa daawan doontaan dul ay yiraahdo maalnimadii talaadadan soo dhaafnay waxaa Washington DC ka dhacay shir ay qabteen Congressional wadankan Mareykanka oo ugu magac dareen HR 128 ama HRA 128 qaraarkaas oo ay lagaga soo horjeeday dawladda Itoobiya iyo xuquuqul insaanka ay ku tumato dad yowga ay gumaysato waxa soo qaban qaabiyay Congress Keith Ellison iyo Congress kale Mareykanka laakiin Keith Ellison oo ah Congress laga soo doorto wadankan Mareykanka gaar ahaan gobolka Minnesota xaafadda Minneapolis degmada Minneapolis xaafadiisa sharaad oo ah ninkii soo qoray qaraarkan ayaa waxa sid adag ugu taagtaagsaday xaaladaha Itoobiya ay kula dhaqamsan dadka ay gumaysato ama dadka ku hoos nool taas oo sheegay in kastoo Itoobiya ay saaxiibo dhow la tahay wadanka Mareykanka haddana ma aha inay xuquuqul insaanka dadka ay hoos hayso ama dawlad u tahay ay ku tumato xuquuqdooda maruu ka hadlayay arrimaha Ogaden iyo arrimaha Oromo ayaa wuxuu hadaladiisa kamid ahaa sida tan.
Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Ellison, who is an original co-sponsor of this legislation.
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. I also thank Chairman Smith and Ranking Member for standing together on this important House Resolution 128. It is true that Minnesota is home to a large number of people who find their roots in Ethiopia and are of the Oromo background. These Minnesotans have made it very clear by reaching out to their elected representatives that while their feet are firmly planted on American soil, they still, like so many other Americans, have a heart and a sentiment where they want to support justice in the homeland that they came from. And as a result, I've been able to get an education from my constituents about circumstances in Ethiopia which make this resolution necessary. So I do rise in support of House Resolution 128, which calls on the government of Ethiopia to make clear, concrete steps toward becoming an inclusive, more democratic, more respectful of human rights of all of its citizens. I'd like to note that this is a bipartisan resolution, proving that we can come together for critical issues like human rights in Ethiopia for Americans who find their roots in Ethiopia and for people all over the world. In Minnesota, as I noted, we are fortunate to be home to one of the largest Oromo and Ogaden communities in North America. And it is because of the relentless work of these folks that these issues have come to light. I thank them. Many of them here are here today, and they have been working on this issue for many years, Mr. Speaker, because it is that vitally important. Now, as my colleagues have noted, Ethiopia is an important ally of the United States. That's a fact. But even allies must be held accountable when they violate the human rights of their people. Status as an ally is not a license to abuse human rights. The Ethiopian people desperately need their government to take action to secure their human rights and expand inclusive democracy.
I yield the gentleman an additional 2 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 2 minutes.
The Ethiopian government continues to detain journalists, bloggers, students, political opposition leaders, thousands remain in prison to this day. In addition, the Ethiopian government admits to killing over 500 of its citizens during the protests in an effort to suppress the people's freedom of speech. Most observers put this number far higher. These abuses have created a serious instability in the country. And while there have been some signs of progress, which must be noted, including the recent election of Prime Minister from the Ogaden Oromo region, we must continue to push for real, concrete changes. For example, the government should let the UN High Commissioner of Human Rights travel through the country to conduct an independent assessment of human rights situation in the country. By passing this resolution, Congress will be making clear that we will not remain silent on this important issue. We will stand together across the political divide in support of these human rights in Ethiopia. By passing this resolution, we will speed up democratic change in Ethiopia. I urge all of my colleagues to vote yes on this important resolution. I yield back.
Forces. Estimates are that hundreds of thousands of Oromians have been uprooted from their homes and forced to flee the persecution and the violence. And there's no doubt that Ethiopia is a very important U.S. ally, but that does not mean that we should turn a blind eye as it oppresses its people. Now, in my state of Minnesota, we are home to the largest community of Oromians outside of Ethiopia. They're valued members of our community, and we're very fortunate to have them. I joined many Ethiopians and Oromians actually this past Sunday night when I attended a very large and moving interfaith rally with members of the African and Jewish community, and we were all together reaffirming their commitment to religious freedom, to diversity, and to justice. And sadly, many Oromians today won't find these ideals in their home country of Ethiopia. So, Mr. Speaker, today the House can speak with a solid, strong voice to support human rights and also condemn the killing of innocent protesters and the arrest and detention of journalists and students and political leaders. And we're also at the same time urging through this resolution that the protesters also refrain from violence, and also urge the Ethiopian government to take very concrete steps to end its persecution and oppressive conduct. So today we have an opportunity to take these important steps in showing our solidarity with the Oromians, and I hope my colleagues will join in support of this resolution. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New Jersey reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized. The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
We reserve as well.
Gentleman from New Jersey reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume for the purpose of closing. I'll note that Chairman Royce has been a big factor in moving this forward, and when I give thanks to Mr. Smith and over 100 more colleagues, I want to make sure that Chairman Royce is a person that's highlighted for his great efforts. We're going to miss him as he's decided not to seek re-election. He's been a person that has shown great ability to be a bipartisan leader in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I enjoyed working with him on this issue and many other issues. Speaker, this resolution seeks to support Ethiopia's political transition as it hopefully moves beyond a state of emergency towards greater civil liberties under a new Prime Minister. This resolution also supports the Ethiopian people's aspirations to live in a more democratic system in which government respects fundamental freedoms. We have partnered with Ethiopia on so many important issues important to their own security, their own health, their own global welfare, and we also recognize the value in that partnership in dealing with the security issues and the ideals and values that the United States has as a country. This resolution strongly urges them to take that other step, to expand that partnership beyond those issues into a partnership of democracy, where there will be rule of law, freedom of the press, where opposition people will not be endangered in terms of their safety, will not be imprisoned. So I strongly support HRES 128. I urge my colleagues to go forward, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I can soon to close. I just call the attention to the membership an excellent letter written by human rights groups, the diaspora, 6 groups in all, and I will put it into the record, but it's Ethiopia joint letter about House Resolution 128 in support of it. They make a number of very important points. For the past 3 years, they point out, as we know, Ethiopia has faced largely peaceful and sustained protesters in the Oromia and Amhara regions of the country. They were led by youth seeking opportunity, political reform, and more participatory development strategies. The government responded with excessive force. More than 1,000 protesters have been killed by the Ethiopian security forces, a greater number injured, tens of thousands imprisoned, and many more tortured for expressing grievances. Over 1 million have been displaced. Let me just say in conclusion that they talk about the importance of supporting this. Yes, there's a new prime minister, but as they point out in their statement, and it's so true, Ethiopia's previous transfer of power indicate that leadership change is often followed by unfulfilled promises, a culling of opponents, and power consolidation. That can't happen again. This resolution, I think, deserves the support of every single member. I yield back the balance of our time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 128 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Purposes, the gentleman from California seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 2219 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 2219, a bill to increase the role of the financial industry in combating human trafficking.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from California, Mr. Royce, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Keating, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
I'm going to ask, Mr. Speaker, unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include any extraneous material on this in the record.
Without objection.
Ogaden,
haatan waxaad ku soo dhawaataan Firdawso Cabdiqaadir oo ka waramaysa xuquuqul insaanka ama human rights ka jira Ogaden iyo dhibaatada ay gumaysiga Itoobiya ku hayo shacabka Soomaaliyeed.
wali waxaan ku jirnaa xagga xuquuqul aadanaha ayaan filayaa waxa arrimaha iyaduna aad ugu hawlan oo shaqooyin wanaagsan ka qabatay Fawziya Cabdikariin Cabdiqaadir oo aad u taqaanaan oo meelo badan gaarsiisay qadiyadan iyo dhibaatada gumaysiga uu leeyahay ila soo dhaweeyo Fawziya fadlan.
Assalamu alaikum. Galab wanaagsan. That's a hard act to follow, Mohammed. You're such a powerful speaker. and you have actually not left any stone unturned. So I'll try and follow suit and see how I can sustain the energy level you have sustained. I would like to start by saying thank you very much for inviting me to this forum. And also I would like to share with you my enthusiasm for one particular issue, and that is the number of youth, the number of Ogaden youth involved in this event and are active today. It gives me tremendous amount of energy, Rahma Habrir, and people like Rahma, to see you running with this, because this is the only way to sustain this. Some senior citizens like us should be stepping aside to you folks. So kudos to you and keep up the good work. It's really energizing. I'm going to make it brief. I know everybody's tired and it has been a long day. And as I said, my colleague Mohammed has really powerfully delivered the critical and the essence of the messages we would like to share with our Canadian government. And I'm glad, sir, you're here. I'm a supporter of the NDP, so from Ottawa, though. So I'm glad to meet you today. So welcome. So briefly, the purpose of my presentation here, as always, is to contribute to the discourse and the debate on issues at a regional level for the Horn of Africa, and specifically to show the face, the human face of the suffering that Mohammed has really eloquently described. So particularly what I will try and underline today in my speech is the role that successive Ethiopian regimes have had in the perpetuation and the ongoing human rights violations, the systematic and historical marginalization of Somalis in Ethiopia. I remember about, I think, 15 years ago when we started doing this in Canada, people were like, what are you talking about? Somalis? You mean Somalia? No, no, no. There is an entire region that is inhabited by Somalis that is in Ethiopia. Not many people knew 15 years ago. They thought we were talking about Eritrea. They thought we were talking about somebody else. So the fact that Ethiopia has managed to hide that there is a large territory, Somali territory, that there is a large number of population that is ethnically Somali, that has been incorporated into Ethiopia by the British during colonialism without the consent of the Somalis who inhabit that territory, and the struggles that they have started since that is still ongoing. Mohammed has told you about the Ogaden, so I'm going to skip about the demographic slides that I have here. But I would like to start, before we glimpse back into history, I would like to start when the current regime came into power. I don't know how many people know that the current regime is really dominated by one ethnic group called the Tigray people of Ethiopia. And it is the Tigray Liberation Front that resisted the communist regime that led the current government. The West that Mohammed has so eloquently pinpointed and highlighted today was quite impressed when Mila Zenawi stepped into power. Because the first thing that TPLF and the subsequent party that they created, the Ethiopian, the EPADF, have created was they have gotten rid of the monarchy in Ethiopia. And they have rewritten the constitution. And everybody around the globe, including every Ethiopian, including the non-so-Ethiopian Somalis, had really sighed a sigh of relief by saying, okay, Ethiopia is no longer going to be this very autocratic, hierarchical ownership under Amhara hegemony, where you had to speak Amharic and you had to be Amhara to be an Ethiopian, and you had to be an Orthodox Christian to be an Ethiopian. That era is over, and everybody was sort of saying, whoa, what's going to happen now? There is no longer that ethnic sort of domination of one group, but maybe there is a hope. So Ethiopia was at crossroads in 1991, 92, 93, when that constitution was being rewritten. And the constitution, as it's written on paper, is really the most democratic, respecting human rights, you name it. I have a professor who once said in 2004, if only 30% of the Ethiopian constitution is honestly implemented, every ethnic group, not only the Somalis, but every ethnic group in Ethiopia will be better off. So they have managed to write a very eloquently acceptable to international conventions constitution. And then it was the time to implement it, and we all know what has happened in '94. So going back with that mixed hope and waiting, which is now 20 years ago, now I think there is no doubt and answer for doubt that Meles Zenawi is the most brutal dictator in the continent. It was a mystery in '92, it was a mystery in '91. There is no mystery. Quickly, the Ogaden, the Somali territory in Ethiopia, was handed over by the British, as we mentioned before, and it was handed over in portions because the colonial in the Horn of Africa, and also the bigger context is the French were mainly dominating West Africa and the British were dominating East Africa. So for the British to keep the French out of the Horn and the East, he started making alliances with the Ethiopians. And that was because the French had a diplomatic relationship with the then Emperor of Ethiopia. So the diplomatic competition was, I want to keep the French out. If I am England and I am colonizing the East, I would like to keep them away from the Indian Ocean. Hence, you sacrifice the Somalis and you go in cahoots with the Abyssinian monarchy. And that's how it all started. And the people of the land, mainly the Somalis, and also the Oromos, and many other sub-nationalities who have been made sub by Amhara and Abyssinian hegemony, have been made into something like a property. Their land taken, their people subjugated, and really some of the people have been even sold into slavery, which is a history that not many people know about. Fast forward from colonialism, we know what has happened under Haile Selassie, and how many people have been also subjected to brutality under that regime. The communist regime was known as the Red Terror in the whole of the Horn, and they were more brutal than anybody else. Ongoing human rights violations, state-sponsored violence was the thing. But when I really particularly focus on what has happened in the Somali territories, and I do research on this, and I was born in Somalia, the republic that has no longer is a state. But my parents have left the Ogaden. And over the years, talking to people and researching, you hear there has been episodic mass exodus from the Ogaden. And just scratching the surface, when you do research, I have come across 7, maybe 8 instances of history starting from 1910, not even going back to when Muhammad was talking about, but also 1910 and the Darwish movement, what has happened in the Ogaden, and the internal displacement of people. When in 1921 to 26, for the British to disarm some of the resistance movement, they started surrounding and taking camels and actually creating concentration camps for camels to disarm people. And then in 1939, with the Italian and the European war also unfolding in the Horn, of course the people of the Horn were caught, and some were on one side or the other. And there again, in 1939 and 45, people have been massively displaced in that region. Internal, external dislocation, people being dislocated internally, people fleeing, settling all over the Horn. 1949 to 55, resistance movement of Nasrullah starting in the Ogaden, 1961 to 64, the uprising of the independence of Government Donkey, led by Bakhtal Dahir. 1977, the Somali-Ethiopian war that really wreaked havoc in the population of Ethiopia. 1991, what we thought was a ray of hope, becoming that, when they say there is a light at the tunnel, you wish and hope that light is not a train. And I think the light that we saw in the early 90s in Ethiopia has become somewhat of an abusive train for the Somalis. 1994, when there was a hope that actually the ONLF in 92 and 93 participated in what was going on, tried to be part of the parties, overwhelmingly won majority in the regional parliament. And in 1994, when they requested a referendum to sort of deal with this more than 100 years of self-determination and people wanting to self-determine and choose what they want to do, they have been outlawed. So 1994-95, the call to referendum changed to state-sponsored violence and the state coming down very harshly on the Somalis. 2007 has been one that has gained global notoriety with the Abale incident and few Chinese workers being attacked. And you want to extort and extract resources when there is 150 years of dispute and displacement that has not been addressed. That was disrupted. We all know what has happened in 2007 when ICRC and Médecins Sans Frontières were kicked out of the Ogaden, when basically the Ogaden was changed into a police state yet again. So, with all this displacement, okay, with all this upheaval, I grew up with the strongest connection. People who have been displaced 60, 70, 80 years ago still talk about it. And the Somalis hold this territory very dear and close to their heart. And I want to talk about that homeland history that is laced with refugee, internal displacement, persons who are persecuted. I grew up with some of my uncles being looked for all over the Horn. Some of them spent in jails 35 years. You name it, there are all kinds of stories. Women having babies while all these are going on. Women raising babies and then losing them to some random state-sponsored violence. This has created what I am terming a recurring nightmare in the lives of these people. Too much suffering and displacement. There is an article by David Turton who talks about the meaning of place in a world of movement, lessons he has drawn from a long study in southern Ethiopia. But what that kind of reminds me when I read that is the stories I heard from my mom, who used to always talk about Warder and wanting to see Warder independent one day. And that is what motivates me. Some of the things that really motivate me to get involved and become a human rights activist for this cause is because of the stories that I have lived with and I have heard over and over and over. 30 years plus. It's interesting, some of my research I came across in 1977, 75, 76, 77. Yusuf Dere, a Somali poet, created a poem talking about how he had sleepless nights because of the news coming from Abale and Dagahbur. We're talking about 1975, 1976. 30 years later, in 2007, the news from Abale is still the same. Not fair. Nowhere near fair that this should be ignored. And you kind of look at Yusuf Dere creating poetry and trying to raise consciousness, and then you kind of juxtapose that to Rhoda Afternoon in 2007 in Australia, a refugee, born in refugee camps, brought up in refugee camps, creating poetry about the plight of these people. And you just sort of say to yourself, are these people less than human? Why is it that their cause is not as important as everybody else's cause? The current regime has expelled, actually in the first 4 or 5 years, they have expelled and jailed more reporters and journalists than the entire continent of Africa's dictatorial presidents. You could see the writings were in the wall when these people were early on creating what they were creating. When we as immigrants talk about the brain drain of Africa or the South and the brain gain of the North, you kind of sit and think about the Ogaden. And what comes to mind is the interrupted human development. It's not so much, you know, the reoccurring brain drain and gain and you name it, people are leaving the place. But those who are left behind, their development is disrupted and interrupted. And I am still trying to coin concepts that can capture that sort of, how do you capture the interruption of human brain development, human capacity development, that people are constantly fleeing, that people are constantly in refugee camps in a neighboring country, they go back. I interviewed, and one of the people who was actually sitting in that interview, a young man, reminded me today when I was in Nairobi a few years back interviewing a 77-year-old who talked about leaving the Ogaden 7 times in his life. Fleeing, not leaving, fleeing. And had bullet wounds to show for. So when you see somebody like that, still smiling, still resisting, still talking about hope, imagine if that person had a stable life, their capacity and their potential. So what we need to think about, and this is a challenge to the younger generation, is we know about brain drain. How can we articulate the interruption of human capacity development that occurred in this region? How do you even begin to articulate that? 150 years. Ethiopia is a poor country. Ethiopia ranks among the lowest in everything, in life expectancy, you name it. But according to their statistical office, the Somali region is at the bottom. The International Crisis Group wrote a study, and they talked about Addis Ababa and the relationship Addis Ababa has with the country. And they have created 3-tier relationship. There is the urban Addis Ababa, one city government, you know, and the business community that are there, that are mainly Amhara and Abyssinians. There is the rest of, you know, maybe not so close relationships around that. But when you talk about the Somali region, you know, it's not even at the margins, we're at the periphery. The Somali region and the Gambela region, there is a third-class citizenship, not even second, there's a third-class citizenship that the Somalis endure in Ethiopia. And the relationship that the regime in Addis Ababa had is so far removed that the Somali state, the Somali territory in Ethiopia, has not known anything but a military police, has no other relationship with Addis Ababa but a military presence. It's an entire region that has no health care, very limited education, and really and truly, when you even talk about the limited services that they get, they are not catered to the nomads, which the Somalis are overwhelmingly, over 80% nomads. I'm going to skip all the examples of the lack of health care. One more example of what has happened in the Somali state, also what is called now the Somali regional state of Ethiopia, the Ogaden. Ethiopia, since the current regime came into power, had 3 elections. Every 5 years, you're supposed to have an election. So imagine having an election, electing a president, and then a year and a half later the president is replaced by somebody who's handpicked. Since 1993, and I am still counting, when I last checked, there are about 12 presidents, regional presidents for the Somali region. We are changing them like people change shirts. What kind of citizenship rights is that? So what I am terming that is Meles and his team are selling illusions of democracy. There is no democracy in Ethiopia. It's an illusion. There is no political resistance allowed. There is no political debate allowed. There is no opposition allowed in Ethiopia. Human rights NGOs have reported continuous, and Human Rights Watch, you were eloquently, Rahma, earlier quoting Human Rights Watch. They're saying the same things we have been saying the last 20 years. But, you know, that Western entity is now saying it, so at least there is some validation in that. So what I wanted to sort of give you is that impact, that perpetual impact. But I would be really not being fair if I don't talk about the plight of women and children in the midst of all this chaos, and situating the plight of the people of this region, particularly the women and the children, along this continuum of when there are crises. You know, you have conflict, and then people kind of get conflict resolution mechanisms happening, and things end. What is happening in this region is there is this continuum of conflict, displacement, dislocation, more conflict, more dislocation, and on and on and on. Women and girl children particularly suffer a disproportionate sort of share of that because they are still. So I just wanted to throw that out there because as somebody who's actually trying to do a PhD in gender and women's studies, I wouldn't feel good if I didn't mention the plight of women and children, and particularly female child and the woman. Now, fast forward to today. We live in a world of post 9/11. We live in a world that people didn't not only not know about the Ogaden, but now the Horn of Africa has become a place that entangled all kinds of nightmares for people after 9/11. And guess what? The West picked Meles Zenawi to be their ally on the war on terror. Imagine that. The Somali suffering in Ethiopia predated 9/11. The Somali suffering in Ethiopia predated Meles Zenawi. It has never been addressed. It is still happening, but now I find myself really kind of having a hard time breathing because it's like there are layers and layers of things that you need to kind of dig to even say, wait a minute, I know Meles is now whatever he is representing Africa. But hold on, you know, Ethiopia is not one little tiny country that is homogeneous and happy and democratic. There are things that are percolating underneath that need to be addressed at the global context. So the questions that keep me sleepless at night, really and truly, are how do you begin to disentangle the plight of the Ogaden people from the current global political economy and its inherent and equal power relations? How do we even begin to have this conversation? How do you begin to dig up the plight of the people? And I am here to sort of say, yes, it's history, but it's a history that has happened to human beings that needs to have a human face to it. So how do I begin to talk about the people's plight under the rhetoric of today's security discourse? Everything is securitized today. How can I begin the discourse to really talk about substantive conflict resolution processes that would address the plight of the millions of Somalis and Ethiopians who are oppressed by this regime? I don't know what the answers are, but I would echo what Mohammed said earlier, which is we need to engage with this. We can no longer sit and watch this. We need to engage with it. We need to bring it to our members of parliaments. We need to bring it to the forums. We need to start to write about it. And this, my challenge to the younger generation is we need to start writing things and putting them in libraries so that people know that this has happened, and it's not being lost in the rhetoric of today's security discourse and the allies on war on terror. And I'll stop talking there. Thank you.
Magalobin manay sangurin gawayadaydiye galabtana midkaan curin haya waa gantaal cadowe galabtana midkaan curin haya waa gantaal cadowe waa guga hilaaciyo nasriga gogol dhigisiye waa guusha jawxiyo tigraygaba warkiisiye waa geelanoo dhalahayoon garoofu abayne halgankeena gaamurayna waa golo dhiciisiye guutooyinka dhaarsan ee gadaya dhiigooda isticmaalka gunga ragga jaraya guugiisa iyo shacabka naga geesiga ee isgarab taagay waa garkiyo halbowlaha wadnaha gacamadiisiiye guubaabadaydiyo salaan wou gudbinayaaye halyeeyada guntiga nuujistee calanka goobaya gogashiyo hurdana diiday ee dhaxanta guuraya ilaahay wuxuu nagu galladay geeshka noo kacaye rabbi haw gargaaree tigray way gagabiyeene una gacan sarreeyaa xaqluhu gooriyo ayaane ummad yahay gadaafaha qabtee nacabku guulayo ee gurada laga fuulay ee gibisha loo yuuqay ee goox bannaan yururtee gaadhka lagu meershay garrida dhawaaqaysa iyo gulufka heensaysan gumaysiga inaan kaga baxna loo go'aansadaye ma garwaaqsateen meel fog baa geedi loo yahaye wayaanahan gudmaha nala dhacee nagu dulgowriira gabowgiyo siqirkay in badan gowrac mariyeene gabdhowgub qajeelay habeen dhabar garaacdeene xabsiyada kuwii lagu guray gawda ku hayaane waxaa lagu gabood falahayaa hooyo gaariyaahe waxaa lagu gabood falahayaa hooyo gaariyehe gumaadkiiyo dulmigan joogtada goodigiyo boobka cudurradana kala gaabshay iyo gaajadiyoonka gunnimay astaamahu yihiin gebiyahantoode kolkii aan xornimo gaadhna way dabar go'ayaane gobannimo waxaa hela ninkii qaata girinoofe ma garwaaqsateen wada jirka lagu guddoomaye intuu gooni daaq yahay badhkeen goroda laalaadin gollidiiyo waraabihii barta guran dhasheeniye guduudan iyo weer guuxayo geedana jiraye goonyaha shabeel baa fadhiya oo gangaabsadaye gooyaha shabeel baa fadhiya oo gangaabsadaye giddigoodba reer habar dugaag way gurxamayaane mid waliba dhufays buu la galay xeelu gooniyahe bahalladan gura baasayee soo indhaha giiran ma garwaaqsateen waa midnimosan ku gudubnaaye itoobiya waxay guraacay iyo ganafka taagtaaba kolba geer waxay nagu daydoy giri ka fidisaaba qabkeedii hadduu gaasir yahay uu gabaabsiihaye gidaar dhaca hayaa lagu maslaa oo ka dumay geese gidaar dhaca hayaa lagu maslaa oo ka dumay geese gafuurkii haddaan jabinay oo gororsankeediiye gebgeblaynta iyo faanku waa gadhaadhacdeediiye gabbal iyo waxay taagan tahay golaha ceebeede ma garwaaqsateen haatan way galalafaysaye kucumaale aar ciidankay ula baxeen goorfog garanugdidaysay noqdeen goodir iyo cawle kolkuu galow dhawaaqay ilmada gabax ka siiyaane gujufkii ay soo urursadeen goosankood badaye gaasaskeenni loo tababara geed xunkii jaraye gaasaskeenni loo tababara geed xunkii jaraye goobaha dagaalkana haddaan laga golroonaanin baktigooda geylaansan bay guran lahaayeene gerrun culus intii loola tegay gadowga loo siibiye gurmad kama helayaan kuwii gaadhka u ahaaye gujo kale haddii lagu dhuftana way galbanayaane ma garwaaqsateen reer maqale gebi ku soo ciiriye gudcur bay in badan nagu mireen gaadma waa halise gabbaldhaciyo waa beri qajeelayna gaaleeyeene gurraanoo qarsoonaan jirtiyo gabanay dooxdaane balse waagibaa galalac yidhiyoo la soo guduubiye balse waagibaa galalac yidhiyoo la soo gudubiye ku inagaga dubnaa indhaha maanta laga gooye gees iyo ka gees hadafkanagu uunka wada gaadhiye maantan garoonka isla nimid oo gabaad ma lehe gebi baan isula soo baxniyo meelan geed jirine ma garwaaqsateen waa iyana gool siyaasiyahe goday iyo wayaanaha ku nool gobolladaydoo dhan gardarrana ku yimidoo waxaa galay wadkaagiye gabalkaagii baa dhacay walle ina getaajowe galluub xume haddii aad kol qudhada uga garan weyday guuldarrada ilaah baa ku baday guudka ku sudhane gaawaha ku shuba maanta way kugu gandoodaaye gam imaysidoo ciidanada waad ku guubateene geyigana waddanigii lahaa gabaska ku qadiye gaashaandhig baa kugu cartamay cadhoo gelilyoone gorgor iyo rag duufaan la baxay dhuunta ku gale galluub xume haddii aad kol qudhada uga garan weyday guuldarrada ilaah baa ku baday guudka ku sudhane gaawaha ku shuba maanta way kugu gandoodaaye gufaaca cadan ku jidhiyo hufadan kugu galaydhyaysay gamuunkiyo warmahankaaga mudan geedadiyo beerka waa bulshada gadoodaysa aad gabloomiseene oo ganaaxi saraan jiriyo diiday kibirkiye oo ganaaxi saraan jiriyo diiday kibirkiye xornimona u wada goomanoo ciilku gaamuraye kumacaanu wada jidhayna geeri loo dhalaye galluub xume haddii aad kol qudhadda uga garan weyday guuldarrada ilaah baa ku baday guudka kuu sudhane gaawaha ku shuba maanta way kugu gandoodaye gomadaha kuwii naga dabree xadhigga noo giijay god madow kuwii nagu ridee goobka nagu aasay adna kugu gardaadshe xumaha kugu gacan haadshay qaladkoodii way wada garteen godobtii waagiye gefkoodii hadday wada fahmeen reer galbeedaduye godolkay ku dhaadhsiinhayeen waa laga gudhine galluub xume haddii aad kol qudhadda uga garan weyday guuldarrada ilaah baa ku baday guudka kuu sudhane gaawaha ku shuba maanta way kugu gandoodaye adduunyadu giran weeyo oo gelinba waa noocee waxaad gaax qurqudhisaba wakhtigu guurta kaa qabaye nafsi waayo badan gaaxsanaa kugu galaal xorye galshadaad uraysiyo lawaa galaxsigeediye galluub xume haddii aad kol qudhadda uga garan weyday guuldarrada ilaah baa ku baday guudka kuu sudhane gaawaha ku shuba maanta way kugu gandoodaye
haatanna waxaa la soo gaaray guntiga gabagabadii barnaamijkeenna waana ku ah bahda ILAYSTV oo idinkaga tegina sidaa iyo nabadgelyo